Hey y'all, I'm Paula Deen. And now that the weather is turning chilly, my thoughts are turning to food that's gonna just warm me to the bone. So today, I want to share with y'all some of my favorite soup recipes. And whenever you're making soup, there's a lot of slicing and dicing involved. So it's going to be off for a visit with Bob at R&R Restaurant Supply, where he's going to help me choose some great knives. And then I'm going to head back to the kitchen where I'm going to be fixing up the Lady and Son's vegetable beef soup. It's more than just a soup. I mean, it's a hearty, hearty meal. And then I'm going to be making a buttery, rich corn chowder and a creamy squash soup that's perfect for any nippy night. And a bowl of soup just isn't complete without some bread. So I'm going to be making up an easy yeast roll. They're just right to sop the bottom of that bowl. So y'all grab your biggest spoon, cause soup's on and you don't want to miss a sip. Guess what today's show is all about? It's all about soups. I think my favorite time in the kitchen was maybe on kind of a rainy day. I would get to stay home and put a pot of my vegetable beef soup on. And I have to say those days are getting fewer and farther between. And do y'all remember me taking you to R&R here in Savannah? Well, I was eyeballing their knives while I was there. So while y'all are gone watching my day in R&R, I'm going to start chopping the vegetables and hoping these knives have a superpower in them. Now, I'd like to consider myself kind of one of those make-do cooks, but the one thing that I don't want to skimp on is my knives. When you go to buy a knife, you should invest in a good quality knife. Bob here at R&R Restaurant Supply is so helpful. He told me that one of the most important things to have in your drawer is a quality utility knife. They're so versatile. And also, he wanted to let you know that you can use a magnet or a pouch to store your knives in. That way they won't get damaged and you won't accidentally reach in a drawer and cut yourself. And I know that I'm going to find these knives to be a huge help today while I'm slicing and dicing. There was superpowers in those knives. Look what I've been doing while y'all were gone. All right, now let's talk about meat for my vegetable beef soup. But I'll tell you the very best one is beef ribs. The marrow from the bones gives it the most phenomenal flavor. You can actually go to the grocery store and they'll have soup bones packaged. So I'm going to dump these in our pot. All right, so I'm going to wash that beef ribby stuff off my hands. And now I'm going to measure up our water. It's real funny about this vegetable beef soup. I was in the kitchen at home one Saturday morning when my phone rang, and it was my brother Bubba. He said, I am so hungry for some vegetable beef soup. I said, honey bunny, you're in luck, because you won't believe it, but I just finished formulating the recipe for the cookbook. So he was thrilled to death. All right, I'm gonna throw in a can of tomatoes. I'm gonna throw in my onions and my celery. Now we're gonna start adding our flavorings. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of house seasoning, a tablespoon of a quality seasoning salt. I love the combination of the flavors of salt. All right, we're gonna add a tablespoon of Worcestershire. All right, so I'm gonna put a little pepper. Now here are all my seasonings. I've got 2 bay leaves, a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. I've got 3 tablespoons of parsley, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of celery salt, and 2 beef bouillon cubes. And all that's gonna go in our pot. Yep, this pot ain't gonna last, y'all. I can tell right now. All right. We're just gonna let that work its magic. I've got a pot of meat back here already ready to add our vegetables to. All right, you can see how the meat has just cooked away from the bone and some of the meat has fallen off. All right, I'm just digging out all these bones. All right, I'm gonna slide this pot to the side. And I'll finish cooking it on the back eye because I don't want to miss a speck of those short ribs. Now it's time to start adding our vegetables. Now I'm going to throw in our carrots. All right, and I'm going to drain these potatoes. Throw those in. The butter beans. I don't know where this came from, but I just love elbow macaronis in my soup. All right, now I'm going to add my okra. I'm going to add my whole kernel corn and my black-eyed peas and some green beans. And these are canned green beans. I don't know why, but they just don't seem to freeze well. All right, now I'm just going to put the lid on this pot. And we may have a first here, y'all. I may not have to change pots. I've got to take a quick break, and while I'm gone, I'm going to be cutting up our meat for our pot, and I'm going to be cooking up Chef Jack's corn chowder. So if you like corn, you're going to love this recipe. And I'll see y'all back in a few minutes. I so hope y'all are enjoying the show. And if you do, be sure to click like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you'll never miss a video. And we'll be right back after the break. The next recipe that I want to share with y'all is called Chef Jack's corn chowder. And I got to know Jack when I was buying and selling a piece of property. And every time Jack and I spoke or had to get together, I found that all that we wanted to talk about was food. So needless to say, Jack and I hit it off from the very start. He has me putting a stick of butter in the soup pot. Now we're going to let that melt. All right, our butter's melted, so I'm going to throw in our small diced onion and our rib of celery and one diced carrot. We've got some good flavors getting started in all that rich butter early on, and can't make this without some fresh diced garlic. So I'm going to let that go right there and do its own thing. All right, to this pot, I'm going to add 3 cups of chicken stock. Always try to use fresh if you can. Now, I'm using 3 cups of whole kernel corn. You could use the fresh frozen niblets, or you could cut it off the cob yourself. So we're just going to put this in the pot, let this heat back up. So let's move back to that pot of vegetable soup that I was working on earlier. Oh, and look, it's just a boiling. All right, now to finish this off, take our meat, gently add it back to our pot, let this heat back up, and you can see it looked like I had a great big pile of meat, but that's when I had all the bones and everything. So when I've done that, there's one last thing that I like to do to my soup. I always like to dump some fresh parsley in my soup right before I serve it. And that just gives it that beautiful, vibrant color. I think we've got a perfect pot of soup. All right, now we're going to be tasting this in a minute, but right now I've got to go back to Jack's chowder because it looks like our carrots and onions are just perfect. Now we're going to toss in a 1/2 cup of flour, and we're going to make a roux. We're going to cook this until this is just a light golden brown. Doesn't that look good? All right, now you'll want to keep your spoon in this roux because if it burns, then you've got to start all over. Hope I don't mess it up. All right, now I'm going to slowly pour my chicken stock and my corn into our roux. Okay, we've got that mixed up, so in goes all the corn. All right, now we're ready to finish up Jack's chowder. Now I've got 2 cups of half and half here. So I had heated it up earlier, and we're going to pour that in to our chowder. This really looks good, but we ain't finished yet. Jack told me to take that last stick of butter and cut it up and drop it into that chowder. And I always do what I'm told. Now, I did notice that Jack had no seasonings, so I'm gonna put a little black pepper in it. And I'm gonna cut this down on low. I'm just gonna kind of stir in that butter. I don't believe you can say that Jack don't know jack about chowder. I think he's got the number to it. I'm gonna dip me up a bowl of this beautiful chowder. Doesn't that look just delicious? And then Jack told me to just grate a little fresh nutmeg on top of it. And he told me to garnish it with a little thyme. And I have to tell you, I got the time to eat this chowder. That's what I got. I've got to dig into this soup. Jack, I might have to come to Hilton Head and buy another piece of property. If y'all don't mind, I need a couple of private moments with just me and my chowder. So I'll see y'all back here in a couple of minutes, and we'll be making some yeast rolls and making some squash soup. I hope y'all are enjoying the show, and I want to hear from you. Tell me what recipes or videos you'd like to see me make by just leaving a short comment below. Now, let's get back to the show, y'all. I want to share with you a recipe that a lady sent me. Her name is Donna Wingfield, and she has this butternut squash soup. I'm going to start with 3 cans of chicken broth. You can hear that chicken broth sizzling. And to our chicken stock, I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add 2 carrots. I'm going to add 1 large onion to the pot. And then I'm going to add approximately 2 pounds of butternut squash. And we're going to cook this for about 40 minutes. And in no time, we're going to have some of that wonderful creamy soup. All right, well, I want to share with y'all a recipe, and it's called the Lady and Sons Easy Yeast Rolls. Now, I'm going to start with 3/4 a cup of water, and I'm going to dissolve 1 packet of yeast in it. You want that water about 98 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to let that dissolve. I'm going to take 2½ cups of biscuit mix, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and I'm just going to put this mixture into our dissolved yeast. All right, so we're just going to mix that up. All right, now I've got a little flour here that I'm just going to sprinkle out on the counter, and I'm going to spoon my dough out onto the counter. All right, so we're going to knead this a few times. This really makes a pretty dough. So I've got me a sheet pan back here. We're going to spray it with a little Pam. All right. And I'm going to pinch these off into like a nice walnut size, kind of a big walnut. Now these rolls are good warmed over, but I do like them fresh out of the oven when my soups get ready. So you'll want to start this maybe about an hour and a half before your soup's ready. Now, I don't want to bore the pants off of y'all. Y'all have seen somebody roll dough before. Now, what we would do is take our damp rag, cover it, sit this in a warm place for 1 hour. All right, you can see I've had another pan back here proofing for us. And you can see that they have expanded in size. So I'm going to just brush them with the melted butter. All right, I'm fixing to put these in the oven. I'm going to let them bake for about 12 or 15 minutes. All right, the yeast rolls are in the oven, and we're going to finish up this wonderful butternut squash soup. Now, everything should be ready. So I'm just going to fill this butternut squash into the canister. I'm gonna add a little of the juice in it. All right, because this is still warm, I'm gonna crack the lid on my cover just a little bit. And all our vegetables were so tender, you can see it didn't take but a second. All right, now we're gonna put these back over into our measuring cup. And then when we get all of this done, we're gonna return it to our pot and bring the temperature back up. Be the last one for us. So we're just gonna dump that in there. All right, now I know that y'all are thinking, Paula, where's the butter? Where's the butter? Here's the butter, y'all. On this last mixing, I'm gonna blend in 2 tablespoons of butter. All right. It's ready now to pour everything back into our soup pot. Doesn't that look? Okay, now to this I'm gonna add my heavy cream. Can't hardly wait to taste it. All right, now I've got a little sour cream to go along with this. But I smell yeast rolls, so let me check on them. Ooh, and they're ready. I've got a plan for one of those, so y'all don't go anywhere. But first I want to taste Donna's butternut squash soup. It's just the perfect soup to serve as a first course. All right, let's move on over here, because I've got a hot date with a fluffy roll. And I'm gonna butter him up again, again. And I'm gonna put him right there in my bowl. Look at that meat, it's just about to fall apart. This, I think, is the best thing I've had to eat in days. Oh. You know, I think there's only one more thing before I commence to eating all my soups. And I want to show you a few ways to turn soups into wonderful, wonderful gifts for your friends. Because there's nothing better than sitting at the kitchen table and sharing a hot bowl of steamy homemade soup. I so hope y'all are enjoying the show. And if you do, be sure to click like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you'll never miss a video. And we'll be right back after the break. For today's tips, I've got some neat ideas for you. If you've got somebody that you're wanting to welcome into the neighborhood, or you've got a sick friend, or if you've just got a friend that's maybe had some bad news, I want to share with you a way that you can really perk them up. And it's so simple and easy. I love taking little mason jars and filling them up with different ingredients. Like this one is black bean soup. Now I just took a piece of cardboard paper, put the name of the soup that this is gonna make, and gave them instructions as to how to do it. And for those that are maybe not up to cooking their own soup, if they've just returned from a visit at the hospital, you can already make the soup like I've done with our vegetable soup today. And this wonderful butternut squash soup is gonna be beautiful in this mason jar, and it's gonna be ready for them to eat. All you do is seal it up, cover it with a piece of scrap cloth that you've got, tie it up with a ribbon, and you can really perk up somebody's day when you walk in the door and say, "It's soup." I don't know if y'all are like me, but I love making soup because you can express yourself artistically. It's the one dish that you can add ingredients to or take away to suit just your palate.
And I have to say, these 3 soups sitting in here in front of me today has suited my palate perfectly. My hearty vegetable beef soup you can't beat on a cool day, or this yummy, yummy tart butternut squash soup, or Chef Jack's buttery sweet corn chowder. And you dip one of these easy yeast rolls in it, it can make a bad day good. So until next time, America, as always, I want to send y'all love and best dishes from my soup pot to yours.
Hey y'all, it's Paula Deen. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and click the subscribe button as well as the notification bell to be alerted when I post a video. Love and best dishes, y'all.